life important. Good to have you, sir.
Good to have you too, leader.
Yes, and when we're saying that we're going to have this conversation, everyone is like, for what reason? For what purpose?
Wow.
I know we've made strides. I have had a session like this before. That was way back when there was this day for donkeys that we were celebrating. And, you know, for a moment, it got me to a level where I sat down to actually understand, you know, these animals are as very important, just that sometimes we look at them as though they're just donkeys and we do not take time to look at how we take care of them. It has been, you know, or it has taken us to instances where we even had to like slaughter them sometimes for food. And then you ask yourself, why does it have to go to that particular level? And therefore today we want you to probably enlighten us and tell us the reason why it is important that we look at this animal differently.
Beautiful. Thank you, Linda, and thanks for having me this morning. Donkeys are critical, actually.
Right.
I think if you allow me, I'll just do a small little bit of history before then I come to now the current where we are at.
Sure.
Donkeys were domesticated like 5,000 years ago. The donkey is the only animal that was actually domesticated in Africa first.
Okay.
The rest of the animals, you go to cattle, sheep, goats, you find they were domesticated elsewhere and gotten to us after they were domesticated. So the donkey is actually the true African livestock that we have. Actually, it's the only animal that even to date you find that we have the wild donkey. They call it the wild ass, which is an endangered species as of now, but then you find it in the Sahel region, the Sahara areas. So the donkey is purely an African animal. Now, why is it truly an African animal? Because then the donkey normally says made for Africa. Made for Africa because you look at his body, you look at, it's almost the last animal standing when a drought comes. Go to all the arid and semi-arid lands of Kenya, and you know 70% of Kenya is arid and semi-arid. Talk to a community member there and they'll tell you, you know what, for us to take water today, that water will come to us either on the back of a mama, the back of a child, or the back of a donkey. So then, that's really how critical it is. Go to places where they produce farm produce. Highlands of this country, you could talk about Kiambu, you could talk about even Nakuru, Dondori, Molo areas, all these areas, even in Meru. Vegetables that we take in Nairobi, probably the probability for that vegetable having been carried by a donkey before it comes to you for eating in Nairobi is very high. If you go to Limuru where they do the collection, is the donkeys actually carry the sukuma wiki, you know, the kales and and spinach and the rest of this to places where roads are accessible, in Nyandarua probably, and then vehicles pick them from there and bring them over to Nairobi. Go to the dairy industry. What supplies feed to livestock? The donkey will go out there in the farm and carry feed to the livestock. The donkey will go out there, carry water to the livestock, and the donkey will eventually carry milk to the buying center. So really, when you look at the donkey, it's like an enabler in the whole of the food value chain. And that's why the animal is so critical. The animal is so important. But probably to people who don't keep them, people who, you know, we don't keep donkeys for meat. And that's how people think, these are not really critical animals. But you go to that community member, they'll tell you, they'll talk so highly of a donkey because it's an enabler and it works actually in places where nobody else works.
Even as they do this, do you suppose then they give these donkeys as much care as would be expected?
I think that's actually the major work that Brooke does. We work with 12 partners in what we call the Horn of Africa, in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Uganda, Somaliland, Southern Sudan. 12 partners who work with communities, and basically we say our work is animal welfare. Animal welfare because then take, for example, a young man who is supplying water in the estates of Naivasha. And the young man will overload that donkey, and they would want to work that donkey from morning to evening, no water, no time even for it to eat and all this. Then it becomes a big challenge. So really what we do is we get down there and help that young man on how to take care of the donkey and actually help them to handle it in a way that really will be nice, because then it's not necessary that you whip the donkey for it to work. No, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
It's just some animal welfare tricks and things here that really will help the donkey to work for you. As you give it commands, you don't need to whip it.
Interestingly, you realize that indeed, like you rightfully put it, maybe it was made for Africa, because then it's used to these tough terrains. It carries so much than you can ever imagine. Sometimes you know, until we have a saying in Swahili, ya kwamba
Punda amechoka.
Punda amechoka, you know, kazi mingi inapatiwa punda, ya. Unanipatia hiyo kazi yote unafikiri mimi ni punda.
Mimi ni punda.
You know, it's like, it's almost like, should be that way, that pundas should be going through these tough terrains and everything. And so at this particular time, as we celebrate this particular day, then we acknowledge that indeed the donkeys have been through the tough or the toughest of terrains. We still are having adjustments that we see today, adjustments that are pretty much tied for the common, you know, people, for the human beings. We speak of, you know, COVID-19, we speak of floods, we speak of drought disasters. And in all this, you find that, yes, as human beings are struggling with the same, donkeys are also right at the heart of it. How then do we get to scenarios where we can help them adapt to this, in as much as we assume that they are strong animals?
One of the things that actually you notice, Linda, is that in every crisis, you find the donkey in there. When there is a flood, you see the donkey carrying wares for people, you know, evacuating them. You've seen people being kicked out of forests around Kenya. Who do you see? Is the donkey actually carrying the wares?
That's true.
The donkey is always found on the scene of a disaster, the scene of a crisis. What is it doing there? It's actually helping that community member to survive, to eke out a living out of, you know, what they are doing. And so even as communities went through COVID-19, I was talking to another young man who actually told me he was doing the long distance lorries. He was driving them. When COVID-19 came, restrictions and all these imports were not as much, he lost his job. What did he do? He bought 2 donkeys and began actually working them around Naivasha. And he tells me, you know what? Even after COVID-19, I'm not leaving the donkey, because really I'm earning even way more than I used to earn while driving these lorries. But then also, life is a bit easier now. I just drive my donkey from morning. Actually, he tells me he works up to 3 and then leaves the donkey to graze. But then he's already earned 1,500, 2,000 shillings, either by transporting water or, you know, moving somebody from people who are shifting from houses. And they're doing well. So the donkey is quite a critical entity in the resilience of communities. That's really amazing.
That's really amazing. I was speaking of which now, we've had even court battles in regards to donkeys.
Yes.
One, of course, care, crucial. One, the aspect of slaughtering them. It's really been common on these sides of, you know, Nakuru, Naivasha and the likes. And, you know, the trade of their skin is equally something that has been crucial. Do you suppose with the numerous court battles and, you know, the efforts that have been put to tame this, that we've made any strides that would be considered as, you know, positive?
I must first of all begin by appreciating the government of Kenya in this way. Of course, the government opened the first slaughterhouse, licensed the first slaughterhouse in 2016. We have 4 of them around the country, 1 in Turkana, 1 in Machakos, 1 in Baringo, and 1 in Nakuru. The one in Naivasha is very well known. Now, last year, March, communities protested to the Minister for Agriculture, C.S. Munya, and told him, you know what? Our donkeys are getting decimated. The rate at which they are being slaughtered is not the rate at which we're rejuvenating them. And Linda, donkeys are not reared in Kenya for slaughter. No. Nobody has a farm with 50, 100 donkeys for slaughter. Nobody. And that is where the problem is. That's where probably the government erred in, by allowing, an extraction enterprise without really looking at the production side of things. And then, as the donkeys were being slaughtered at one time, actually every day, those 4 slaughterhouses would slaughter up to 1,000 donkeys every day. And so the numbers began getting extremely low. Communities would wake up and they find their donkeys slaughtered, stolen and slaughtered. Some get stolen and you never see them again. And so communities really protested, and the minister closed the slaughterhouses. But then the slaughterhouses went to court, and they fought up to 5th of this month. The judge in the High Court of Naivasha actually lifted the ban. And so even as we celebrate today and celebrate National Donkey Day, communities are really apprehensive. And I remember the questions I've been receiving over the last 1.5 weeks is, if these slaughterhouses begin to slaughter donkeys again, Raphael, do you want to tell us we will go back to the challenge that we had? A mama waking up in the morning, looking for the donkey, just looking for one to go down to the river. They miss the donkey, they go searching in the village, only to find a carcass with the skin removed. Yeah. Because then it is the skin that the traders are looking for. That's the most valued thing because of the Chinese traditional medicine. Okay. They say actually the skin makes something called a jiao, which is a very, very highly valued Chinese traditional medicine. That is actually what is driving this whole big challenge. So really our call to the government, even as at now, much as the court lifted the ban, we are saying the substantive issues are still there. The court said they have lifted the ban because the government did not actually answer to the case appropriately. Right. But then we're saying, countrymen, yes, the government may not have answered to the case appropriately, but then the underlying issues still remain. Donkeys are few in this country. Yeah. Slaughtering them is going to create a big crisis at a community level. There is going to be theft. Communities are going to fight one another. It's going to be messy. So still, I appeal to the Director of Veterinary Services. Kindly, this is not a business that is ripe for Kenya. We are not yet there. We don't have the numbers. Communities will clearly tell you donkeys are for work in Kenya. Okay. They are not for slaughter. All right. Speaking of which, you have had this catch phrase for that matter. Yes. Mtunze punda, akutunze. So as you highlight the role of donkeys in supporting humanity, that is owing to their resilient nature as well as their contribution to the SDGs. I mean, what do you make of that particular phrase? What would you tell the people today? Actually, one of the things we keep saying these days is, and thanks to our partner Kendat, who actually designed Mtunze Punda Kutunze, which is a program we ran for years and communities were able to get it. Actually, we graduated it now with same Mtunze Punda Daima. Because then the donkey has been there, faithful servants, very faithful to communities. Why don't you just take care of it? Of course, we are deriving so much out of it. We were looking at the SDGs, and I know you've mentioned that. Yes. And it's amazing, actually, the donkey, out of the 17 SDGs, the donkey particularly works on 6 very, very nicely and very well. Okay. Getting communities out of poverty, because then KALRO, the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization, 2019 actually told us every month a community member in Kenya on average earns around 12,000 shillings from a donkey. That is really nice, good employment. Yeah. But then when you look at even those other places where people don't earn the hard cash, the works that donkeys do and save people money is quite a lot. Donkeys, you may, most of the Kenyans may not understand this. You go to arid semi-arid lands, pastoral areas, women own them. And in some of these areas, women actually don't own anything. Yeah. But a woman actually is completely allowed to own the donkey, and so then really that gives a lot of dignity, gender balance. Issues on water. There's a SDG on water. There's an SDG on education. We've seen places where donkeys were stolen. Children drop out of school because there's a direct relationship. You steal a donkey from a household, then the child is the one who will go to the river, and they will not really find time to go to school.
Or study.
That's actually the direct relationship. So the donkey actually contributes directly to education, you know?
Yeah.
And we can keep actually mentioning all these SDGs actually the donkey contributes to. So it is a critical animal when you begin really to look at the benefits of it from the community perspective.
Wow. Dr. Terry, as we come to a close, donkeys for prosperity and resilience amidst adversity.
Yes.
Call to action, pretty important.
Yes.
What would be your message today? What would be the action plan? What then would get us to a point where we're having a different conversation in years to come?
What we're saying is this. Number one, donkeys are critical to communities. Donkeys are critical to people's livelihoods. And communities will tell you that these animals are very critical to them. And so then we are calling upon the government. Can we protect this resource? Let's protect it because then the last census, 2019, told us in Kenya that now we have almost 1.2 million donkeys. If you do some rough figures, you know, even divide that amongst the households in Kenya, you see over 500,000 households actually depend on donkeys. If there is a resource somewhere that 500,000 households depend upon, they wake up to every morning, there is need to protect it. And so that's one call that we're actually saying to the government, kindly, let's protect this resource.
Right.
Let's stop the slaughter. But then number two, to communities. Donkeys are so critical a resource. I know in the past, donkeys are used to being released out there to fend for themselves. Please protect your donkeys. Because now, you know, we're in a fluid situation. The slaughter is there, slaughter is not there. And we actually need to have communities taking responsibility in terms of protection. But then finally, with the communities again, we actually need to delve a little bit more into the welfare of this animal. It's not necessary that you hit the donkey for it to work. It's not necessary that actually you whip it and leave it without food and mistreat it. It has a wound, yet you're really pushing it. No. You can handle it better and nicely, and I know we are all over this country. We can actually help communities on how to really handle their donkeys better for better welfare of the donkeys and better service to communities.
So there is much sensitization going on?
There is much sensitization going on today. Actually, we have communities in around 12 counties who are actually celebrating the animal.
Yes.
Through various activities, doing activities like tree planting and all this. We have communities in Nakuru, in Narok. We have communities in Kakamega. We have communities in Kisumu. We have communities in Meru, Kirinyaga, and Embu itself. We have communities in Machakos, communities in Kitui today who are actually celebrating the National Donkey Day. And in those celebrations, most of the things will be about welfare. How do we take care of the animal? How do we ensure actually we serve it so that then it can serve us better? Yes.
There are these particular communities that hugely rely on this animal. I know it's now across, but there are these ones that are well known for the same. How different is it for them?
How different is it for them? You go to a county like Turkana. Turkanas are some of the community members in this country actually really depend on the donkey because they know their pastoral nature. And incidentally, actually in the pastoralist communities, we see a little bit more care than even in the highland communities. In the pastoralist communities, there is a way the only challenge we've seen in some of those communities is the water scarcity, and so the donkeys, there is also this myth that donkeys actually take a lot of water. When they take water, they take so much water, which is actually not true. Donkeys take water just like any other animal. But pastoralists know how to take care of donkeys a little bit more than even communities in the highland areas. Where we have real challenges is in highland areas where donkeys are purely used for commercial purposes, in peri-urban areas where young people, especially vijana, use them for commercial purposes. That's why we have real problems. But then here we are ready to help because some of them actually don't do the things they do because they want to do them. They do them because they don't know how better to do them.
All right.
And so we're saying our partners are all over, please get in contact with us.
All right, and speaking of which, I realize that this is actually a global menace in the sense that the slaughter has literally threatened the population of the donkeys across the global fraternity. Today, I was just going through some stories and I realized that it's extremely bad. Donkey trafficking, the likes of Colombia, or so to speak. On a global angle, what has been done towards the push of making it a better place for the donkeys, even as we celebrate this International Day for Donkeys?
Thanks, Linda. Now, a GL trade requires upwards of 10 million donkey skins every year. The world has barely 40 million donkeys.
Wow.
So then, in 3 or so short years, the donkeys will be gone. And so what we're trying to do is to talk around nations. Like I know the East African community, the talk is really, really there. How do we actually cooperate? I know IGAD has actually been really helping in talks around Africa, but then also Africa is speaking to Caribbean and all this. AU, African Union, is talking about this. So we are the very initial stages, but then we are hoping that eventually there will be one voice around the world. Because if we want to slaughter donkeys, we have to grow them. We have to produce them. We don't have the technologies now. We don't do AI in donkeys. In cattle, we do AI, we do all this sort of. So there's a lot of things that are not developed at the donkey level. And so that's why we're saying the huge trade in terms of slaughter is not sustainable as of now. We'll have to stop it. We'll have to put our house in order. And if we feel like we want to open it later, then probably that's possible. But the world today doesn't have technology to do donkey slaughter sustainably.
Definitely. Thank you so much. We all hope for the best, even as we celebrate the International Day for the Donkeys under the theme Donkeys for Prosperity and Resilience Amidst Adversity. We can only hope that we get to that point where, yes, the cards will shift and change for the better. Dr. Raphael Kinoti, Mugambe of Brook, thank you so much for the great insights. We hope that people can take up the challenge and equally learn as much. How do they get a hold of you before we go?
No, they can get a hold of me. You want me to give
Brook?
Yes. Brook, actually, we have a website.
All right.
If somebody I know Kenyans today are very, very nice with Google.
Savvy, right.
If you just Google, you see Brook. And when you get to Brook website, then you can actually see our partners, their contacts there, so you can really call them and write to us, write to them, all this. So really, it's right on your phone.
Thank you so much, Dr. It was good having you this morning, and thank you so much for tuning in and keeping it right here from the Word Go, 6 a.m. all the way to 9 a.m. Immense feedback. We're grateful for that as we look forward to see you again tomorrow. My name is Linda Alela. Do have yourself a lovely week ahead. Thank you, Dr.
Asante sana.
Thank you.